Hi, everyone. Welcome. Going to give us a few minutes as you trickle in. But while we're waiting, if you want to pop into chat and let us know where you're tuning in from today, that'd be great. All right, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and kick us off, but welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Alexa, and I am Spoonflower's Maker Community Manager. I am so excited to be hosting our Craft Fridays session today with Katie, who I'll introduce shortly. For those of you who have joined us in the past, Craft Fridays might look a little different to you this year. So in the past, we've actually held this event on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving here in the US, and packed multiple pre-recorded workshops into a full day. So this year we are bringing you 4 different real-time virtual workshops spread across 4 separate weeks so that you can settle in, get crafty with us, and some super talented members of our creative community. So we are glad that you were able to join us today. I'm going to drop our Craft Fridays announcement link in the chat now so that you can be sure to register for the next 2 events if you haven't already. We had a great event last week. And then in 2 weeks, we've got Robert Mahar doing some botanical pressing. And then rounding out our Craft Fridays event this year, we're doing some block printing with Allison Toon Aguilar. So Jesse is going to drop that link in the chat. Thank you, Jesse. So as for today, we will be learning how to make 3 different pair of fabric earrings with just 1 swatch of Spoonflower fabric. But before I introduce today's instructor, I just want to talk about a few housekeeping items. So first is a reminder that today's session is being recorded. And also, if you're not signed up for Spoonflower emails, that is the best way to stay updated on events like this one. So I will drop a link to subscribe in the chat now if you are not already. Thank you, Jesse. So I'll be moderating chat throughout today's session, as will Jesse Katz-Greenberg, our artist community manager. And then I'll be taking care of as many questions as I can throughout the session. But if there's anything that I can't answer, I'll actually direct it to Katie as we are crafting together. You'll notice, obviously, that I can't see all of your beautiful faces, but we definitely want to see your projects from this session. So to do that, just snap a photo of your work either during the session or after we're done today. Share it to Instagram, tag Spoonflower, tag Periwink Boutique with the hashtag Spoonflower Craft Friday. And we can drop that information in the chat as well. And finally, in order for us to properly kick it off, I would like to start with a formal introduction of our instructor, Katie. So after I give this intro, we'll also drop some more information about Katie in the chat so that you can learn all about her and her business, Periwink Boutique. So Katie Snow is a designer with 15 years of experience in branding, consumer packaging, and content creation. She brought her surface design and maker dreams to life in 2022 when she launched her small business, Periwink Boutique. Since then, she has expanded her designs onto a variety of e-commerce and print-on-demand platforms, launched her Etsy shop, and has begun selling handmade products crafted from her own fabric patterns at local shows and markets in her hometown of Cincinnati, Ohio. So as a fun fact, this is Katie's very first event with Spoonflower, so we are very excited for her to share her talents with you. Thank you, Katie, and with that, I will let you take it away.
Thank you so much, Alexa. I appreciate that. I'm so excited to be here and to craft with everyone today. And thanks for that introduction. I'm gonna still give a little bit of a brief overview of my background because I'm sure a lot of you have no idea who I am or have never heard of me before. I'm fairly new to this industry. Surface design is something that I started back in the summer of 2022. And I do this as a part-time side hustle. So my full-time job is as a graphic designer. I graduated with my BFA in graphic design in 2010. Since then, I've been working for a couple different agencies over the years, creative agencies. I started in consumer packaged goods, doing packaging design. And now I focus more on branding, brand strategy. I dabble a little bit in content creation and digital marketing. But with all that, as exciting as that is, there was still something missing in my life that I wanted just for myself creatively. And it took me years of just kind of searching of what I wanted that to be, what that looked like. Something that I was passionate about, that I could just kind of call my own, and just have complete creative freedom. And then I was introduced to surface design. And so in the summer of 2022, I discovered Spoonflower and realized that they took independent artists from all over the world. And that was kind of my foot in the door to start surface design. And then from there, I started exploring what all those other options were within the artist community. Knowing as an independent artist, it's important to diversify your income streams. And so one of the things that I explored that I knew I wanted to do was also make goods with my designs. I grew up, my mom was a crafter and maker in the 90s, and I grew up going to craft shows with her, and she taught me how to sew. And so it just felt like a natural fit that I explore that area of taking my designs and making different products and goods with them. And so that's how it started to evolve into my maker business. So I have the two sides. I have the studio side where I do my designing, and then I have the maker side as well. And I started off doing tea towels and pillow covers and a lot of home decor, but I had all this leftover fabric that I didn't know what to do with. Tiny scraps. I'm sure if you're a crafter or maker, you can relate. You probably have tote bags or bins filled with leftover scraps of fabric. And I don't want it to go to waste. You know, I'm on a budget. I want to make sure that I'm maximizing, you know, my product. And so I did a little bit of research and started looking into what were small products that I could make with the scraps. And jewelry and earrings started coming into play, which initially wasn't even really on my radar. Because I guess I just didn't consider initially using fabric to make earrings. And I realized I could, and they turned out pretty cute. So I started exploring different styles. I made a lot of prototypes, lots of misses in there of things that I didn't like, and then I landed on a couple styles that really stuck. And so that's how I came to be here today to show you all how I make those earrings. And I'm going to go ahead and share my second screen so that you all can see my workstation. Great. Can you all see that? Hopefully. I think it should be up.
It looks great, Katie.
Awesome. Okay. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make these 3 styles of earrings. And I'm going to go over the supply list really quick. The first thing that you're going to need is a Spoonflower swatch, or you can use your scraps of fabric. I'm going to be using a swatch here. You can make all 3 styles of earrings with this one swatch, but certainly grab your leftover scraps, whatever you got, you can make it with those as well. This is the linen cotton canvas. It has a little bit of structure to it. You can certainly use a cotton that's a little bit thinner, but you do need something that's going to give this a little bit of structure. So I wouldn't use any sheer fabric or any stretch fabric. Make sure it's a cotton-based fabric. In addition to that, we're going to need some fabric glue. I have tacky glue here that I'm going to be using. We're going to need some Mod Podge. We're going to need an artist brush, and I would not use your favorite brush or an expensive brush. This is going to get glue covered, and you won't be able to use it for any kind of painting. So I would get an old brush that you don't mind getting glue on. We're going to need a ruler to measure. We're going to need a circle template to cut out some of our earrings, and we're going to be actually using the 1 3/4 inch circle, which I believe I have my conversion measurements also written down, is 4 centimeters if you're using metric. You'll need a fabric pen or pencil. Here's a fabric pen here. I actually, for this, like to just use a mechanical pencil. So I'll be using that. We're going to need some scissors. And then some cardstock. So I just have a little like 2-inch by 2-inch piece of cardstock, and that's going to just help with one of these pairs of earrings. It's actually this pair right here. We're going to glue it to a piece of cardstock just to give it a little bit more structure and make it a little more durable. We're also going to need a 1/16 inch hole punch, and it's super tiny. You can see that is going to make a hole in one of our earrings so that we can add our earring hardware. And then we're also going to need some buttons and button covers. And so that's what these are here. These are 7/8 of an inch, and they come with these backs as well. So we're going to need 2 of each of those. And in the supply list that I gave, there are links in there. If you have trouble finding any of these things, I've included some for some of the items that you may not be used to working with, so that you can easily find them. Usually these types of button packages come with a little kit. There's this little rubber form that you'll use to make, and then there's this blue little press. So most kits come with that. So just make sure when you're ordering those, you look for that so that you have that, because it is important in making the buttons. And then in addition to that, we've got some earring posts, and these are going to go on the back of our buttons. They come with, most of them should come with little like butterfly backs to put them in place. I'll lay back here, maybe you can see it a little bit better that way. And then we're going to need, I know there's lots of supplies here. With jewelry, there's lots of little things you need. So you will also need some fishhook earrings. We actually need 4 of these in total. I get the ones that have the little rubber backs on them as well. And then we'll need some jump rings to attach our earrings. We need 5mm, 7mm jump rings, and also a 14mm jump ring, which I'll get. And we're going to need several of those. Usually in a pack, you can get packs of like 20, 100, 200. I usually get the 100 pack of those different sizes. And then additionally, we're going to need, for our hoops, we're going to need 2 circle connectors. These are in gold. You can get the hardware color of your choice. I like to make my jewelry with, most of my jewelry is with gold or silver. And that's basically what these guys are here. This is 28mm, I believe. But you can get the size of your choice if you want them a little bigger or a little smaller. It doesn't matter. And then we're going to need a pair of chain nose pliers. These are little mini ones. And that's going to help us create our earrings. And then in addition, a sheet of wax paper, and this is just to protect our surface. I have one already cut out that I'll be sticking down in a second. So that's what that looks like. You just cut out a little square, enough to be able to glue your pieces. So it doesn't need to be huge. It doesn't need to cover your entire surface. And then tape for that to tape it down. And then there's a couple optional things that I like to use, but are certainly not necessary if you don't have them or don't want to use them. And that is, so I have my cutting mat here. I like to protect my workstation with a cutting mat, helps me measure, keeps my surface protected, but certainly you just need a flat surface. So if you don't have a cutting mat, that is totally okay. I also like to put my earrings on earring cards. And so I have some with my branding on it, but you can buy blank ones and write little notes on them. If you're gifting these, certainly that's not necessary if you're going to keep them for yourself. But if you want to gift them, I like to put them on a card. Fray check is also optional, but I like to use that on the edges of my fabric just to keep them from fraying. The fabric that the linen cotton canvas, when you glue it, it usually doesn't fray, so you don't really need it, but I just do it to reinforce it. And then pinking shears, again, this is optional. I like to use these to create a little pattern on the dangly hoop earrings. But certainly you don't have to do that. It can just be a clean semicircle if you prefer that. And then I have a paper plate or a small dish, and this is just to put my glue brush on so that it doesn't get all over my cutting mat. And then if you want a second pair of chain nose pliers, or these are round nose pliers, and this is just to help with the tiny pieces of jewelry hardware. I like to use two at the same time to help me open and close the jump rings, but certainly it's not necessary if you have other ways to go about doing that. Go for it. So with that being said, I'm going to move all of these out of the way and we're going to get started. Is everybody ready to start cutting out this fabric and make some earrings? I'm very excited. So we have our swatch here. We're going to go ahead and measure out all of the different sizes that we're going to need. So you're going to need your ruler. We're going to need the circle template. You're going to need your swatch, your scissors, and your pencil or fabric pen. And I actually have a swatch that I've already cut out, and we can just go ahead and get started measuring. So this measures about 8 by 8, and this should get you all 3 pairs of earrings that you need. And we're going to go ahead and start measuring our what are going to be our fabric leaf earrings, and those are 4 inches by 4 inches, and the conversion for that, I believe, is around 10 centimeters if you're doing metric. And so I'm just going to measure this out. I just like to go up and make sure that it's going to be even all the way across so that we don't have irregular squares. And then I'm just going to draw a line down, and then we're going to measure. We're going to turn this. We're going to measure 4 inches up. And certainly this is the size that I like to make the earrings out of, but I think it's also good to do some trial and testing of your own, because maybe those sizes are too big. Maybe you want it a little smaller, which is totally fine. You can make, that's the beauty of these leaf earrings, is you can make them pretty much whatever size you want. You can do all the same steps, making it bigger or smaller. It doesn't really matter, but I have found that the 4-inch size is a good size for earrings. I think that they're kind of showstopper pieces of jewelry. They make a statement. And your patterns, the print of the pattern, you could do this on solid. I'm using one of my abstract Christmas designs. This is my diamond tinsel design. I think using abstract prints helps with when you make the earrings. If they're they don't have to be symmetrical, and it abstracts the design in a way that it's okay if it doesn't have some identifiable pattern or print on it. So I like to use abstract designs for that very reason, just because they're smaller, and it just creates, cute crops of the print that you're using versus trying to get some sort of, whether you're using fruit or animals or something like that. You can certainly do that if the pattern is small enough, or florals. Florals would be very pretty, but I like to use abstract designs so that it doesn't really matter what area of the pattern that I need to use, and it just allows me a little bit more freedom. Okay, we're going to start measuring out our circles. These don't need to be symmetrical as well, but if you prefer them to be, then I would just kind of map out the print that you're using to make sure that you have a similar area that you're cutting out for each one. I do, for the button earrings, I like it to be similar, just because they're such a small surface area. I want to make sure that the pattern that I'm using looks somewhat similar, but you don't necessarily need to. If you like a little asymmetry and don't need your earrings to match exactly, that's okay. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring out the 1 3/4 inch circles. And these are going to be for the buttons and for the hoops. And I'm trying to get part of the pattern that has those like bursty tinsel pieces on it, because that's the fun part. And I can kind of, because this is a dark print, I can see through that from the back. So we're going to go ahead and cut these out. Cut out your 4-inch squares. These are going to become the origami leaf earrings. Okay, we've got those two. We'll set those aside for now. We're going to go ahead and cut out our circles for our button earrings. And I'll just cut out one of these. I actually have some pre-cut. So I'll cut out one of these, and then I'm going to go to my pre-cut one so we can continue on. But you all keep cutting. Cut out your 4 circles that you'll need, and then set those aside for now, because we're going to use some glue for our leaves. So while you're cutting, I'm going to set up, get the wax paper out, tape this down. Put this off to the side a little bit so we still have a blank surface to go back to. That way I don't have to move it.
Hey, Katie, while you're doing that, can I ask you a quick question from the chat?
Absolutely.
We had someone ask if the template, the circle template is, the measurements are the diameter of the circle or the circumference?
It's the diameter.
Diameter. Okay. So,
I
and
will I'm gonna
One and
check
three
it.
fourths.
I'm gonna check it just to make sure. Yes, it is the diameter.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
so 1 3/4 inch in diameter, and then I believe it was 4 centimeters for the metric conversion. Okay. So my wax paper is taped down. I'm gonna get my brush out, my glue covered brush, and my paper plate. Again, don't use your favorite brush or a nice one. This is going to get ruined with the glue. It should be your designated glue brush. So make sure it's one that's not your favorite. You can find inexpensive ones, so you don't have to feel bad about using it for glue. But I'm just gonna use dunk it in my Mod Podge, and I'm gonna flip my 2 squares over so we're seeing the back of them, and I'm just gonna start to brush on that glue, and I want to cover the entire surface area. It doesn't need to be super thick, but it does need to cover the entirety of the surface. And this is where your wax paper comes in handy, because I go off the edges, and if I didn't have this, it would get all over my nice cutting mat, and I don't want that. So this is the benefit of having that extra protective surface of the wax paper down. And I just want to coat the entire surface. I want to do that with both pieces. So I'm going to do that again over here with my second one. I just like to smooth that glue out so that I'm not going to have bubbles or ripples when I fold this over. That's what we're going to do. We're going to end up folding these in triangular shapes. And so you just want to smooth all that out. And some of the fabric might fray a little on the edge, but that's totally okay, because we're going to use our scissors in a little bit and trim off the edges. So if there's any imperfections in your edges, that's totally okay. You'll have a chance to cut those off. Okay, so I'm gonna set my brush down. I'm gonna wipe off any excess glue from the Mod Podge. Put my lid back on for now. And then I'm going to fold these in half. And so what I'm gonna do is just fold these over in a triangular shape. And I'm gonna try and get it as even as possible, but it might not be perfect. Like I said, we'll have a chance to cut it. And you just want to smooth that down so that it is a flat triangle. And we have our pattern on each side. And I'm going to do that with this one as well. Fold that in half. press it down, smooth it out, get rid of any ripples, bubbles that might be underneath. Flip it over, check it, make sure it looks okay. All right, let's see. I'll make sure you all can see that. Okay, so I have 2 triangles. I'm gonna set my paper plate with my brush aside for now. And we can trim these edges. So you can see as I made this, even though we measured it correctly, you know, human error, you're gonna have some imperfections. That's okay, we can cut these off. So I'm gonna just trim this so that this is a clean edge. And you can measure it out. If you're, you know, not great at cutting, I suggest measuring it. I like to just eyeball it and just go slow. And just trim any extra edge that might be showing the underneath fabric, the white part of the fabric that we don't want to see. Trim these a little bit extra. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Take this off really quick, get that out of the way. I'm gonna cut the other one. This a little bit here so that we have a clean, nice, crisp, sharp edge. Brush off excess. I have a little trash can next to me. It's helpful to have something nearby to put your scraps and excess in. Okay, so we have our 2 triangles here. And I'm gonna see which side I want to be the front of the leaf earring. And I'm going to actually put that face down. So I like, these look very similar. I'm gonna, whichever side that you want to kind of be the piece that's gonna be the front, put that face down. And now we're going to start our fold. I call it an accordion fold. And you wanna make sure that the long side of the triangle, the hypotenuse, is facing towards you and the point is facing away. And I just start folding about 1/8 inch over. And it doesn't have to be exact 1/8 inch. That's just kind of a rough estimate, but you do want your folds to be similar. You don't want them to be all different. So I'm going to start there with 1, and then I flip it. And I do the same thing again. I fold it over the other way. And then I flip it again, and I fold it back. And you'll see my triangle's getting shorter and shorter, and it's starting to just form this long line. And that's what we want. So we keep going back and forth until the entire triangle is folded. And I have a little edge here left, and I'm just gonna fold that over. So from one side, it looks like this. And from the other side, you can kind of see all of the folds. And what we're going to do is we need our tacky glue. And we're going to need some clips, some sewing clips. So I have a couple here. I usually use about 3 on each for each leaf. So I'm going to set those out. And on the side, the long side where you can't see any of the folds, we're going to add some tacky glue. And I'm just going to put, I like to kind of use the nose of the glue to kind of rub it in. I want, kind of like what we did with the Mod Podge, I want the entire surface area covered minus the middle, because that's where our earring is going to go. But I don't want a ton so that it's coming out when we fold it. And if it does, it's okay. We'll brush some of it away, but you don't need a ton. You just need to cover the surface except for the center part. And I probably have a little bit too much on there. So I have a toothpick, and I'm just going to kind of rub it on there to just get a little bit of excess off, smooth it out. And then I'm going to, because that's glue cover, I'm going to stick that on my plate. And now we can fold this so the 2 pieces meet. And so what we're going to do is fold these down so the 2 points touch. Start pressing those edges together. And from the front, you can see how that starts to look. But we're going to need our clips to hold that in place. I'm going to clip one here at the bottom, and then one here more towards the center of where the earring is going to go. We're going to let that dry for a little bit. But before we do that, I do have a little bit of excess. So you can always just take your brush, show it so you can see the front of it, and just take your brush, run it down, center, removes. It's going to dry clear, so it's not a huge deal, but it happens. And we're going to let that sit for a second. We're going to do our second one. We still have a little bit more gluing to do with this one. So don't set that too far aside just yet. But let's do this one more time just so that you can see it again, because this will be our second earring. So we're going to do our accordion fold. Like I said, roughly 1/8 of an inch, but you can kind of eyeball it. It just needs to be enough so that there's plenty of folds in your leaf to make it look decorative and like a leaf. And so we go back and forth, flipping it over. And kind of pressing down in place a little bit. The glue actually helps give it a little bit of structure. So it stays, your folds kind of stay. It's the nice part about the Mod Podge. And it makes it kind of malleable. So like I said, the side where you can't see the folds, that's the part that we're going to glue. So we get our glue back out. And we just kind of rub it in lightly with the nose, the nozzle of the tacky glue, and make sure that we kind of cover the surface, leaving the center open. We don't need glue there. And we're going to get our toothpick back and just gonna smooth some of that out, just so it's even. And then like we did with the other one, we're going to bring it together. And so the 2 points touch. And then I kind of press it with my fingers on that fold. It starts to make that leaf shape. And I'm gonna clip it here and here. So as you see it from the front, you can see that leaf start to take shape. And I'm gonna get my brush back out, get some of this excess off. Might even use my toothpick a little bit to smooth it, but as that dries, it will dry clear. So it's okay. And so in addition to that, we do have a little bit more gluing to do on these. You'll see that these folds here need to be glued down. And I like to do it with the first like 2 folds. So this little guy right here, and then the one underneath it, just to help keep that down and secure. So I'm going to add just a little dot there, fold that over, and a little dot here. Don't need much, just a little bit. And then I'm going to take my other clip and clip part of that down for now. So we have our clip covered leaf at the moment. 3 clips are going to be on each one. We'll make sure to glue this one down as well. This fold. And then this top one. And then clip those in place. And then we're going to set those aside for now. Let those dry for a little bit. We're actually going to move on to our second earring while those dry. So we're going to do a little jumping around, a little back and forth, so that those have time to set a little bit. And so next, if you've cut out all your circles, you should have all of those cut out. So we're going to need 2 of our circles. This is going to be the dangly hoop earring. So we'll need, in addition to those, we're going to need to cut out a circle as well on, set those up here for now, another 1 3/4 inch circle on our cardstock. And so we're just going to measure that out. And this is actually going to be cut in half. So on my circle template, I have little lines here that says where the halfway point is. I like to use those, put little ticks in there, and then draw a line down the center with my ruler. And and we're going to cut out this circle, and we're going to cut down the middle as well. And we're actually going to glue our circles, our fabric circles, to these, and this gives it a little bit more structure, a little bit more durability, and a little bit more weight too to the earring, so that it can hang a little nicer. And then what I want to do is, so I have my circle cut out, I'm just going to cut down the middle so that I have two pieces. Okay, now we are going to go back to gluing. So we will need our Mod Podge again. And we need our brush and our paper plate. And we're going to put some Mod Podge on both the fabric circles and the cardstock semicircles. And like the leaf earrings, we just want to do, you know, a thin layer, but fully coat the surface. Make sure you're doing it on top of the wax paper, because it gets messy. And we get full surface covered. And we also want to add a little bit, I think it helps it stick better when you add a thin layer to the cardstock as well. So we're going to do one side here first, and then we'll stick it to our fabric, and then we'll do the other side once it's down and attached. Just a thin layer. Set that, my brush aside. And so what we want to do here, so you all can see, I'm placing the glue side down on the glue side of the circle fabric. And I do it on the edge because we're going to fold this over. And we want this side glue as well. So I'm going to pick my brush back up, put a thin layer of glue on the other side of the cardstock piece, coating it. And now I can fold this over in half, because we're making semicircles with our fabric. You fold it over, and you might see some of the white or the cardstock showing through. That's okay. That's what our pinking shears is gonna fix in a little bit. But let's glue our other piece. Again, glue side of the cardstock to the glue side of the fabric circle. And then we're going to add a little bit more Mod Podge to our cardstock. And then fold that piece over. And now we have two semicircle pieces. And we're actually going to let those dry. I want to let those dry a little bit before we actually cut them. I think it's a little easier to cut when it's had time to dry. So we're going to set those aside as well, but eventually we will come back to them. set your brush and your glue aside, and we're going to move on to the button earrings. So grab your other two circular pieces that we cut out, and you want your button pieces and the backs, and we want the rubber, I call it a form, the button form, and the little blue press that it comes with. And what we're going to do is move these over because we're going to start with one. And we want to take our piece. The center part is what's going to be shown. So that's why it is a little bit more important on the button earring to make sure that you have the design that you want in the very center, because what you see on the edges of this won't be seen. So we're going to see some of this coral and teal color, those teal dots come through when we're finished. So I'm going to lay that on top of the rubber form. You can see that there's a hole here that we're going to press it into. I'm going to lay that on top, have it kind of centered. And then the dome side of your button is going to be face down so that it can press into the fabric and the fabric can form around it. And so this takes a little bit of effort, a little bit of elbow grease. I might stand up for this to press that down into the form. And you're going to start to see the folds of the fabric come over like this. And I like to just make sure that the rubber piece is fully, the edge is fully around the button. And I like to kind of press the fabric in there with my finger, because you can get some folds in there that you're going to get some folds, but you want to make sure that at least the edge is clean. And actually I have an example I can show you of some of the ones that I've messed up before. You can see if you don't press it in all the way, sometimes you get a folded piece like this. And once you put the back on it, you can't go back. So you want to make sure that you've got a nice clean edge. Try and press those folds in there so that this doesn't happen. And so you just kind of have to eyeball it a little bit, look at it, make sure that the edges are all good. And then the back piece has a little bit of a lip to it on the edge. And that part you want facing up. And you're going to put that on top of the form. And this is where this blue piece comes in handy. Now, if you're using a thinner fabric, a thinner cotton, this should be super easy. With the linen cotton, this can be achieved. It's a little thicker though. So this form and the blue piece, I mean, you might have a little bit of a struggle getting in there because it's a little bit tighter. And you just want to press down. And if that isn't working, you should feel it, and you should kind of hear it snap. If that doesn't work, I have a little hack that I use. I have a dowel here that's roughly the size of the button. And I just use that to really press down and get that in there. And you want to hear it kind of click into place. And that way, you know, it's secure. And it takes a little bit of muscle. And you'll know that it's in there because when you look at it, you'll start to see some of the edges of the fabric. And that is how you know that the back is secure in there and it's not going to come off. So now you can just pop that out because we're going to need to do it again. So now you have a button, back and front. Set that aside and we're going to do it again. And it's okay if you mess up. Usually the button packs come with several. So if you mess up, you can try again. I have a whole baggie full of mess up buttons, so it happens. It's totally okay. Sometimes it takes a couple times for you to get the feel of it. So again, we're going to center the circular piece of fabric over the form. We're going to take the dome side facing down, and we're going to press that in to the form, and it's a tight squeeze. So you got to use some elbow grease. Use some muscle. Get that in there. You want to make sure that that form is all around the metal edges of that button. And we start pressing the folds of the fabric down, making sure that the edge is going to be clean. You don't want any bumps, any irregularities to our button. So press it down with your finger. That looks pretty good. And then again, we take our back piece with the lip facing up, and we're gonna press that down. And I need some assistance with my dowel because it is a tight squeeze. Just press it, snap into place. Like you can kind of feel it with your hands when it happens. And then I'm going to pop that out. And so there we have our second one. And these are pretty symmetrical. They don't have to be. In fact, I'll show you. I have another pair that I've done. It's from the same pattern, but different. Each earring is a little bit different. You can tell it's from the same design, but so it doesn't have to be if you don't want. But certainly if you like things to be symmetrical, then you factor that into planning when you cut your circles out. Okay. And now we're going to add our earring backs. So I'm going to take the butterfly back off for now, just to show you. I'm actually going to put these back on. You don't need to take yours off. I would leave them on, but just so you can kind of see, because these are little. So this is what it looks like. These are 10 millimeters across. That's what it looks like. And then the butterfly pieces to hold it in place. So I'm going to put those back on. That way, once we glue them in, I don't have to touch them for a while because it will need to cure. And this is where we need jewelry glue. So this is what I use, B7000. And it's a clear yellowish, has a little yellowish tint to it. I'm going to flip my earrings over. And these aren't going to go in the center like you would think. Most people will probably think, oh, you just put it in the center. I don't really like to do that. I like to put it up so that it sits right on your ear, so that it's not going to hang, but that when you put it on your ear, there is kind of a top to it. So if you want, kind of look at your design and see what you want to be the top, what you want to be the bottom. And I'm just going to flip these over and then to the flat side of the earring back, I'm going to add a little bit of glue. I'm going to start in the center, and I'm just going to squeeze out a dome enough that when I press it down, it's going to fill the whole area. And then I'm going to attach it. And I'll turn that around. So for you guys, so you can see, I'm going to attach it sort of to the top, whatever you deem the top area. I'm going to do that again, add glue to the center of the back of the earring. Let that kind of build up into a dome. And then we're going to press it to the back of our earring. And it's okay if it kind of comes out the sides a little bit. We want to make sure that we have a generous amount that's going to stick. And so when I turn those around, that's what they look like. We have our earring backs on them. And these should be set aside and probably not messed with for about 24 hours. It needs about that long for the earrings for the glue to cure. So you want to just kind of put them aside somewhere where you're not going to mess with them or they can't be damaged, so that those can dry. And then we're going to come back to our leaves. Now, normally, I would like to let these dry a little bit longer, but for purposes of this, I think we're going to be okay. But you do want to make sure that you've let these dry for 20 to 30 minutes before you take the clips off. And we're going to add our earring hardware. So for this, for the leaves, we need the larger 14 millimeter jump rings, and then the smaller 5 millimeter jump rings, and then our earring fish hooks. And like I said earlier, I got all these in gold, but certainly whatever hardware color you prefer, you can use. And we're going to need our chain nose pliers, and I have my round nose pliers as well. And so we're going to start with the 14 millimeter. And I just like to try and get up close to the camera so you all can see. I just like to pull that apart. And for this, you'll need to actually pull it apart pretty far because it has to get around the fabric. So, but I just like to do it straight apart so that I can easily pull it back together when I'm ready. That's like enough. And I'm going to, that hole in the center is what it's going to go around. And so we're just going to add that earring piece, that jump ring around, and I'm going to close it. So I'm going to take both of my pliers and bring it back together and make sure that that is nice and tight and together so that nothing will come out of it. And then next, we're going to take our 5mm. We're going to do the same thing. And this is where it's helpful to have both sets of pliers because they're so tiny. Helps in pulling them apart and using the tiny noses of them. Pull apart. We're going to hook it around the larger jump ring. And then let me turn this so you can see the front. So here's the front. We have our 14mm jump ring. We're attaching the 5. And then we need our fish hook earring. And we are going to make sure that the hook part with the rubber back is facing away in the front. So the front looks like this. The back looks like that with the folds. You don't want that showing. That's not the front. That's not the showpiece. So the hook is facing away. And you add that to your 5mm jump ring. And then take your pliers, put that back together. And now you have one earring down. We're ready to go. Let's do it again. So the center of the leaf is where that ring is going to go. Pry it apart. Do it slowly. If you do it too fast, it could break. So you want to go slow, gently, but pull it apart enough so that it can go around your folds of the fabric. So we're going to hook it in. And then we're going to close it up. Make sure you have a good grip. Close it. So the two ends of the circle are touching. You don't want any gaps. And we're going to add the tiny 5mm again. So we're going to pull that apart. Hook it around the 14. And then with the pointy part facing the back of the earring, we're going to attach that, let that kind of lay there as we close. Close up the ring. Make sure that's good and tight because we don't want anything falling off. And we have 2 leaf earrings. Now, if you want, would be a time if you want to like do a little extra trimming to any of the edges. If there's still some imperfections or some white showing, you can certainly do that now and just be very careful as you trim. If you want the point to be a little bit more precise, you can kind of go in and just trim that. And I like to kind of dust them off with the glue and everything. They can get some little particles on it. And so I just take a clean, dry brush. And this is how I would also kind of maintain them, kind of the care instructions that I would give with these. If they start to get a little dusty, you know, it's fabrics, things can collect on it. You have pets like I do, you might get cat or dog hairs on them. And I just, some glue pieces and I'm using my fingers to kind of peel off. But I just kind of dust them off, make sure they look nice. And then here's the optional step with adding the fray check. So this is fray check. It helps your fabric edges from fraying. And this just gives it an extra kind of bonding to it. And I take that along the edges just to make sure we're added protection. You don't need to do this because of the type of fabric that we're using. I have not had issues before with it fraying, but I just like to add extra finishing touches to things. So we'll do that to the edges around both. And then set those aside to kind of dry. Doesn't take long to dry. It kind of soaks in to the fabric. And then just gently kind of drag it along. It's very liquidy, so it comes out very easily. You don't really need to squeeze the bottle very hard. And I just kind of let gravity do its thing. Drag it along the edge. And set those aside for now. Let those dry a little bit more. And we'll go back to our hoop earrings. So next, we are going to cut. And again, I said this was optional. If you like a clean semicircle edge, that's totally up to you. I like to add a little bit extra detail and get rid of some of the unevenness to the edge. It just happens naturally when you fold these over, and you might have a little bit of the card stock sticking out. So I just like to take my pinking shears. I think it adds just a fun design feature. And I just take it along the edge and I eyeball this, and I take it pretty close. Like you want very little scraps from the edge as possible. So I go slow and I just kind of eyeball, making sure that I'm getting all the unevenness, hiding the cardstock part so that you don't see it. And I just follow the circle. And see, I did very little that I've cut off here. But it adds a cool design feature to the earring. I'm going to do that with this one as well. Just take it slow. Don't need to rush this. You want to make sure that it still looks like a semicircle at the end. And there we go. So there. These are my two pieces with the fun edge cut out around them that are going to become our dangly earrings. So now we need to make a hole in these for where we're going to add the hardware. So we need to get out the 1/16 inch hole punch. And this is also good if you do end up using earring cards to gift these to someone. This is useful for those earring cards as well, for the earring to stick through. So we're going to do this flat edge of the semicircle. We need a hole in the center, but we want to make sure that it's far enough down that the jump ring can hook through. We don't want it too close to the edge. We want to make sure that we give it enough room to dangle. And so I'm going to go down probably like 5 millimeters, I'd say. And I'm going to cut, or punch, I should say, the center. And you're going to hear noise. There we go. Got our first hole in. And we're going to do that with the second as well. So kind of find the center. You can, if you want to be very precise, you can measure it out. I eyeball it. And then make sure that it's far enough down that the jump ring has a nice spot to dangle from. And punch that out. And so now you can see that we have a hole back there, and that's where our hardware is gonna go. Okay, so now we need 7 millimeter, so a little slightly bigger. That way it has space to go around our semicircle pieces. And we need our 5 millimeter as well. That's going to go towards the top. And in between those two are going to be our connectors, our gold hoop connectors. And then we need our fish hook earrings. And we need our pliers. So we're going to start with the 7 millimeter. And like we did before on the leaves, we're just going to pry those apart. Enough so that it can hook around your semicircle. And before we close it, we need to add the connector piece, the hoop. So we're just gonna lay that in there, let it dangle while we close the jump ring. Put a good grip on it. And close that up nice and tight. All right, first part of the earring is done. Now we want to add the small 5 millimeter to the top of the connector and the earring hook. So we're going to pry that apart again, hook it around. The connector, and then we're going to add our earring fish hook and then close that up. And it can definitely take some getting used to making jewelry with these tiny pieces. So give yourself patience, take some practice a little bit, because it can be hard to maneuver some of these little pieces. Go slow. And we're going to do it again with our second earring. So the 7mm piece, we're going to pry apart. Hook it around our semicircle fabric piece. And add our gold connector hoop. Close it up. And now we add the top part. Back to the 5mm jump ring. Open that up. Hook it around your hoop connector. Take your fish hook earring back. Add it to the 5mm jump ring. Let that dangle while you close it. Close that up. There we go. And now we have our 2 hoop earrings. And I also, again, this is optional, but I do like to add fray check to this. It doesn't really need it because the cardboard is there and it's been glued down, but I just like to reinforce that edge a little bit, make sure that it's good and perfect. So I just add it around the jagged edge that we cut with our pinking shears. I'm gonna set that aside, let that dry. And soaks into the fabric. And do the same with the second one. Again, this comes out pretty quick. You don't need to really squeeze it out. Kind of comes out on its own. I just kind of guide it with my hand. And there's that. So now, if you want, you can add them to the earring card. And so I have some that are already pre-made. Like I showed at the beginning. So these are all 3 earrings that we made. The origami leaf, the dangly hoops, and the button. Now, like I said, with your button earrings, you need to continue to let those dry. I would not add them to an earring card just yet. You need to wait a day, let those cure. But you can get pre-made, pre-punched cards online, blank ones. I think they're, especially if you're giving these as a gift, it's nice to add the earrings to the card. Write a little note to the person you're gifting it to. You can sign it. But you'll see, here's a blank one that I have that doesn't have the earrings in it. I used a regular hole punch, like I think it's a 1/4 of an inch hole punch for the top so that I can hang it if I wanted to. And then you need 2 holes for each earring. And that's where the 1/16 of an inch hole punch comes into play. And you could do this even just with a piece of cardstock. So if you like the cardstock that we used to make the dangly hoops, you could cut out a piece that's the right size you need and just make those holes yourself. You don't even need to get pre-made cards if you don't want to. And that our 3 earrings. Did we have any questions? I need to go? You want me to go over a step again or explain something a little bit better?
Very few questions, Katie, from the chat, but mostly just praise for how wonderful your instruction was
Oh,
throughout the session. So thank you so much. I think it was really cool just to see, like, at the beginning of the session, the finished product, but then as we went along, how it was coming together, especially those leaf earrings is just like pretty extraordinary. So thank
yeah.
you so much.
You're welcome. And I don't know if any of you follow me on social media, but I did tease out a couple days ago that I had a little extra surprise, a little something special to share with you all. And it's more so in the holiday spirit of things. So certainly, we made earrings today. I love jewelry. I'm sure if you tuned into this, you probably love jewelry as well, but maybe people who don't wear earrings, or who aren't jewelry people. And so I wanted to share something with you, something that we did today that you can easily do. It's an activity that you could do with friends, family, get the kids involved, and it's holiday appropriate. You can actually take your origami leaf and make it into an ornament. And this is even simpler than the steps that I showed you to make the earring piece because it includes less hardware. So this I made a little bit bigger. I cut out a 6-inch square for this. But again, whatever size you want, you can make. And I just added the large 14mm connector to this and a piece of ribbon. And now it becomes an ornament for your tree. You can put this around a bottle of wine or attach it to a Christmas present. And now you have a handmade gift ornament to give someone. So I just thought that was a little something extra special for, the people in your life that maybe don't want to wear jewelry or don't have their ears pierced. This is something that you can do with the origami leaf as well.
I love that idea. That's such a fun bonus, Katie. And we in our family, we try to do a DIY ornament every year. So maybe that's what we're doing this year.
That's perfect. Yeah, I definitely envision getting, for parents out there, getting the kids together and making this a fun holiday craft where you can make your own ornaments for your tree and get out all those leftover scraps of fabric and now you have a purpose for them. You can put them to use.
Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us today. We are going to share a survey link in the chat. You can click that link and open it up now so that you can share your feedback with us. And we can just continue to create the types of events and webinars that you want to see the most of. And then, of course, don't forget to snap a photo of your project and share it to Instagram. Again, that hashtag is Spoonflower Craft Friday and tag Spoonflower and Periwink Boutique. Thank you, Jessie, for sharing that in the chat. I can't wait to see what you all created, even if it's after today's session. And we'll see you for the next Craft Friday session in 2 weeks.
Nice. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a break because of the American Thanksgiving holiday, right?
That's right. We want to give everyone, consumers, but also small business owners, just a little breathing room for Cyber Week. So
yeah.
We'll join you all again in a couple of weeks. But thank you all so much.
Thank you, everybody. It was great crafting with you all today. I appreciate it. And thank you so much, Alexa and Jessie, for having me.
Yes. Thank you, Katie. Bye, everyone.
Bye.